would just basically look at the notes and try to play, but I was so distracted that I couldn't execute like what I was thinking in my brain. It was just always going back to the ear.
Welcome to Talking Ears. This is a sound-positive space where music creators get candid about the relationship between music and their ears. I'm Frank Wardinger, music audiologist in Philadelphia.
And I'm Juan Vasquez, music audiologist in Chicago. For this episode, we have a conversation with Vincent Karamanov, a freelance bassoonist in classical music and orchestral settings in Chicago.
Vincent's hearing changed drastically a couple of years ago. He experienced distortions in his ear and what he refers to as hyperacusis. This really sidelined him from music and changed his life. Quick producer's note, we wanted this episode to focus on Vincent's story and not be bogged down with the technical terminology. But if you're interested in hearing that discussion, I invite you to listen to the companion episode to this, where we discuss the nuance and interplay between the different decreased sound tolerance disorders.
Throughout this conversation, Vincent gets very heavy in how this change of his hearing affected not only his performance for music, but also his life's perspective, his relationships, and even his employment.
We'll listen to how Vincent has gotten back into music and actually leveled up his career in a big way. But first, we're going to ask Vincent how he got started in caring about his hearing health.
This whole thing kind of crept in very subtly. I was always pretty diligent about protecting my hearing growing up playing in bands. My mom would always say, make sure you wear your earplugs. And, I wasn't perfect, but I protected them enough. But after getting my first job in an orchestra, I started to kind of get more serious about it. And since I was in a professional setting, and it's kind of like, okay, well, I want to make sure that my hearing health was good. And I was noticing where I sit in an orchestra is frequently in front of very loud instruments, typically trumpets, trombones, low brass, or percussion. So, and depending on the setup, it can be fairly close proximity. I started to become aware and using earplugs on a consistent basis. I got musicians' earplugs, the custom fit ones, and things were going well. But after a few years on the professional path, I started to notice a little bit of a distortion sound, a little bit of crackly, sort of sensation almost in my left ear. And I didn't really think too much of it because it was pretty intermittent. To me, I took it as kind of almost like a little warning sign, or kind of maybe this is too much sound on this side of you, or maybe it's because where you're at, or maybe just lots of thoughts. So I was like, okay, well, maybe I need to use my earplugs a little more. Maybe I need to use stronger ones.
All reasonable thoughts.
Yeah, sure. Right. I guess a couple of years kind of go by in that phase. And it's almost like one day I was playing for a very, very loud symphony. It was a Shostakovich 11. Basically depicting war scenes. So it's extremely, extremely loud at times. I remember after this concert, basically feeling almost shell shocked. Didn't feel like getting up out of my chair. I was just kind of whoa, I've never felt this before. After the concert, I was walking to my car, and there was an outdoor festival or something. And usually I would be like, oh yeah, let me go just go walk over and check out the band and see what's going on. And as I got closer, I'm like, oh God, I can't handle this at all. Get me out of here. I can't be in this environment. In hindsight, that I'm thinking that pushed me into a different sort of phase. And kind of from that moment on, I noticed that the distortion started to get more frequent, more intense. I started to become more worried about what was happening.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And so basically what was going on, I started to get into the habit of overprotecting my hearing. Mm-hmm. I was associating that distortion, that sound with that my hearing was in jeopardy, or it started to become like this anxiety-based
Mm-hmm.
thing. I did start to use earplugs out, like at bars in situations where normally I wouldn't have before.
Yeah.
And that kind of disconnected me from the experience. And that was a hard thing to adjust to.
For our listeners' pleasure, here's a recording of Vincent performing the Mozart Bassoon Concerto in B-flat major.
Even though it was like some sort of like protection, I couldn't really like understand what people were saying. So I was feeling that disconnection and the urge to just not bother, to just not go out and not have to deal with it. At a certain point, that distortion started to get to a point where I was so anxious and so fearful that it was affecting my mood. I became super irritable. It was affecting my ability to basically play on stage like in a reliable way. So I was noticing I would just basically look at the notes and try to play, but I was so distracted that I couldn't execute like what I was thinking in my brain. It was just always going back to the ear or what was happening, in my environment. So that's when I started to get really freaked out. That's where I got in touch with Heather around the same time. I went to an ENT and I got a diagnosis, tonic tensor tympani syndrome with associated hyperacusis, which I don't know if that was totally accurate. And Heather's like sort of not sure either. And she mentioned, maybe it's dysacusis. Personally, the label isn't really as important as just like what was happening and understanding that it was this like physical sensation. It sounded like a blown speaker. So it was like masking all of the sound from the left side of my head. So it was like very intrusive, very worrisome. And then it became this anxious loop of like, I'm worried, and it just bled over into like all the other like aspects of my life, including my relationship, my marriage. It was put a huge stress on that. It was a fear-based situation. It was a reaction to the fear of danger or the fear of damage. Loud sounds or like irritable sounds, and like not necessarily things that normally would be bothersome, either in my past or to like your average person. And it wasn't even always in a musical setting. Like a couple times it happened when I was just in an argument and I was like very elevated and things were just up here, and it would happen. And it would become painful, like a blown speaker, a tearing sound. But like now I've learned to basically not pay attention as much to it. I've developed that over time. So
you calm that reaction. Yeah.
And I can imagine it's something that is very difficult to talk about, and it might be a little triggering to go back to those experiences. But even within the audiology community, it's not very well understood, and we still need a whole lot more research and literature about it.
That was one of the things that when I learned how like rare it is, that like honestly, it worried me even more. Because I was like, oh, and I noticed that there wasn't a lot of resources. Like when I had my appointment with my ENT, he was just kind of like, yeah, I mean, there's really no cure. Here's a piece of paper with a couple of suggestions, and basically, good luck. one of the helpful things that was on the sheet that I got from the NT was the recommendation to therapy, CBT. Although, like, kind of just the overall, like, here's a pamphlet, good luck vibe was like pretty frustrating.
It is frustrating. I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, no, it's but that's kind of, I think, the frustrating part about our system. At least that was there. That little hint was there because I got a therapist, and it was the first time that I had gone to therapy. So I started to explore these concepts of like black and white thinking, for example, just things that are probably just helpful in general, but specifically to deal with heightened levels of anxiety that I was experiencing, and learning about cognitive distortions as a starting point, but not really realizing like how long the journey was going to be. So I ended up going through multiple therapists and multiple modalities of treatments.
And speaking of multiple modalities, we've mostly been talking to Vincent about his classical bassoon playing. He mentioned that he also plays bass in some bands and produces music. So let's listen now to a demo recording of a band that he's playing bass in. It's a little bit louder than the Mozart piece. Here you go.
2, 3, 4.
Like I would get super annoyed at like regular, just everyday sounds, and so sort of hyper focus on that, and just get irritable about what we all experience in daily life. Whether it was like just the neighbor mowing the lawn, or like it hit right at when COVID hit. So there was this kind of weird pause button that was put on everything, and like an extra set of like barriers to exploring this and like finding my way through it.
Emotions are heightened during that time, and then there's a snowballing effect of emotions and hearing. It all kind of balls together. Absolutely.
I was in an apartment that there was a gym above the apartment, and like people would like drop weights, and I was like super annoyed with that, even though it wasn't like damaging. It was just like annoying. But I was still kind of on the tail end of this whole experience, and like it'll never be over. It's just managed, like I like to say. It's like I feel like I'm in a managed state with it. Living here, and like I've just noticed that I've been able to somehow just let that stuff become part of the background, and like, okay, I live on a busy street. It's Sheridan Road. There are sirens, and like thinking that a couple years ago, like I would be so pissed and so distracted, and like I would not be able to handle that. It's kind of a nice reminder. It's just like, oh man, I can, whatever, no big deal.
It's actually a really good message too, because we see patients a couple years later who always say things like, if I could tell myself a year ago that I would be this far along now, I wouldn't believe myself. And we have the luxury of putting this on tape and then listening back and people saying like, really? I was that stressed at that moment? Or wow, look how far I've come. So it's really nice to hear what you just said. I think that's part of the message here, is not to like steal somebody else's slogan, but it gets better.
Yeah. I remember thinking like that it probably wouldn't. At the time. It's tough. And it's not funny. I'm laughing, but it's not really funny. It was not funny for me. I mean, I went through hell. My entire life changed. I lost everything. I lost my job, my wife, I just couldn't be. It was like I was so difficult to be around. I was so irritable, and it affected my personal relationships, like not just with my wife, but like my family members, and the way that I would be perceived, like on the phone, talking to my mom. She's like, you're different, like what, this isn't you, like stuff like that, like what you're saying, and having that like perspective. I was in this place where I was like so worried. I was like, there was one note I saw, I was like 95% sure that I would not be able to like come back to music full time as a profession. Like it was that bad and that convincing, I guess, that I wouldn't see improvement. And I think Heather mentioned I was one of the worst cases she'd seen of what I was like.
Sure.
I didn't know that at the time, and she was very smart and tactful at not
Mhm.
saying certain things to like make it worse for me,
Yeah.
but to sort of gently give me tools, I guess.
Yeah. Now you mentioned, Vincent, you mentioned Heather. This is Heather Maliak, friend of the show, music audiologist in Ohio.
Yeah. I listened to one of her episodes. Yeah. She's great. Shout out to Heather.
Yeah, we agree. Come on back on the show anytime. Can you talk more about how she guides you through these early stages in dealing with your ears?
Heather, I don't think I would be in the place I am without her suggestions, guidance, involvement, especially at the first like year or two. She gave me sort of a desensitization protocol that came from a textbook that I ended up following for 9 months. Like I did 9 months. I listened to like it was basically just like various volumes of music, and I did it every day. That was one sort of approach.
How long was that per day?
It was about an hour,
Okay.
I think,
Yeah.
a day, an hour of about like it's so interesting. Like this, the article or the chapter was written when CDs were the primary like
Sure.
way to listen to music. So it was like, well, pick a CD, listen to the whole CD. And
Yep.
so I was like, oh, a whole CD. So what is that? That's like about 45 to 50 minutes usually. So that they specified the amount of time ish, but it's like, yeah, a CD. Okay.
That's fun.
That was like the defining.
At least it wasn't like put a 78 on and
Right. Listen to 15 78. No, it was just basically, I was like, yeah, I'll listen to like one or two albums or something. And I love listening to albums. So it was kind of this way to like,
sure.
kind of listen to stuff that it didn't make me anxious. Like I didn't start listening classical music, for example.
Sure.
I started with like pop music and just like things that I knew I was like that weren't going to like activate me or trigger me. Like,
Yeah. I love that attitude too of using music as part of the treatment. I'll say the same thing that Heather said eventually to you is, I've been seeing musician patients for about 15 years, and I've only had a handful of cases of dysacusis or hyperacusis that really would rise up to this level of career threatening and life changing. They're really, they stand out when they've come through, and I would never say to their faces during treatment, this is a really bad case.
Yeah.
Right? So,
Yeah, right.
she handled that
who would
correctly.
do that? Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's nice to know that there's another side, another end that you'll get to,
Yeah. Well, it's a delicate balance. It's like you don't, because saying that I would be cured or like putting some kind of like goal or like destination wouldn't have been maybe healthy, or it would give me maybe an expectation that, on a time frame. So at the same time, it's so frustrating to not get like, oh yeah, if you do this, eventually this will happen, or some version of this. It was just like, no, this might just always be this way, no matter what you do. But I think subconsciously, I knew how like serious it was. Like you said, it's like, anyone worth their salt isn't going to say, yeah, this is just such a bad case. Like, good luck. Yeah.
Sometimes we hear that performing and staying connected with music, even if it's not the type that you were playing before, it's a great way to kind of get back into your own life. This is a recording of Vincent playing guitar now with a band called the Murder City Players.
When I was going through the sound desensitization protocol, engaged in cognitive behavioral therapy, became apparent like this was going to be like a really long and slow process. One of the challenging things about the timing being basically when COVID like hit, I just received like this like diagnosis and stuff. So my ability to kind of work through it in a way that was normal or felt like what my daily life and career felt like, it was gone. Like it was all gone. Like I couldn't, because I think of my disposition at the time, I wasn't convinced that, orchestral concerts would even come back, after the
Sure.
shutdown and all of that. So I was just in a really negative, super negative place. One thing I got into that was really, really powerful for me, and I think probably, I don't even want to say like saved my whatever. I think it probably saved my life was mindfulness.
Hmm.
I took a course in mindfulness, a local center for mindfulness, based on John Kabat-Zinn's
Oh,
stuff.
sure.
It
Yeah.
was, yeah, the famous quote: "You can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf."
Hmm.
And so I went through an 8-week course on that. So that really set me down a path of exploring like more holistic approaches. So getting more physical activity. I started a yoga practice
Mm.
and I started meditating. It's funny. I kind of like, they say like the way you do one thing, you do everything. So it was like the intensity that I brought to my like pursuit of my career in classical music. I shifted that to, okay, what's going on here? And so I started to meditate 30 minutes every morning, sort of, I guess, rewiring a lot of stuff. But the thing is that it takes a lot of time. It takes a long time. And I wanted to go down the path. I wanted to put off using medication as much as possible. I wanted to try to take these holistic approaches after reading what some of the like side effects of the medications were. When I talked to my therapists and my doctors about it, there's like, they agreed like it would be good to take this approach first before mixing in medication.
Mm.
But the downside is it takes time. There's a limit to, I think, what people will tolerate, especially in COVID, like in a personal, in a marriage. Like I was like really tough to be around for a long time, and very heightened, very elevated, like emotionally, very irritable. So it did a lot of damage to my relationship at the
Hmm.
time, but I was making like slow progress. I did have to I came to a point where I had to decide, if I was going to like stay in my job that I had at the time,
Hmm.
or if I needed to like take a step back and focus on getting well. And so I decided to leave my job.
Hmm.
And that was at a point where I wasn't really confident that I would be able to get back to playing professionally the way that you would need to hold a contract. So that was huge. That was huge. And my whole identity like came crashing down because I've only ever thought I was good at music since I was, 10 or even
Yeah.
earlier, when your parents or whatever, they're like, "Oh my God, you have like an ear." Oh, my friend who plays whatever said he has a good ear. And, so like there's all this reinforcement that goes along with that. And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden, like this is if not my whole identity, like a huge, huge, huge part of it. So like having that come crashing down was just, I'd never experienced anything like it. So it just felt like my life was over. It's like,
Yeah.
I was like, what am I going to do? Like, what the hell am I going to do now? Like, because in school, I was never good at academics. It did kind of narrow things down, and it made me think all
Mm.
I'm good at is this one thing. And when that became threatened, and I think this ties into like how the psychological component of the fear,
Hmm.
because deep down I felt like that was like all I could do. So if this was going down that path of damage, then it's even worse, because what are you going to do? You're not good at, like, it's not like I was actively thinking that, but I think subconsciously that
Yeah.
was playing out. And so when that happened, I was like, okay, I'm going to keep doing this therapy and keep on my meditation and keep improving, and trust that is going to take its time. But in the meantime, what am I going to do? Like I'm going to pursue something else
Hmm.
as a backup, or as a just in case, or like as a, like, I don't know. I don't know if I'll be able to get back. So I enrolled in massage therapy school.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So basically, in order to do that, though, I kind of like was pretty convinced that things probably weren't gonna like work out. So I
Yeah.
had to do a lot of letting go. This is kind of like a mantra that I used for a while, was just letting go and like accepting, like radically accepting what the situation was at the time in the moment, and not having expectations for the future. It's so hard to do that, really.
Absolutely.
Um,
Well, like you mentioned, and this goes for so many musicians, but I don't think that non-musicians understand this intuitively, is that to be at the level of playing bassoon where you have a job in a symphony, you need to be so dedicated. I had it explained similarly that there's more people who get into the Olympics than people who get into symphonies.
yeah,
Like it's that much dedication that it's involved in getting those positions, and then holding it is not uncompetitive. So you have to have this laser focus in your brain, and then when that bit is threatened, what do you fall back to? And I think what the average non-musician can understand, if the Olympian gets injured and can't do their sport anymore, what skill do they have that they can fall back to? And very often it's teaching that sport.
Hmm.
But other than that, you're left with this situation where you essentially put all your years and time into a skill, and now your skill is not guaranteed to provide you income and livelihood. Yikes.
right.
Man,
Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that. That's really a big thing, and it's a hard thing to share, but it sounds like you've really come on the other end of it, come through to the other end of that.
Yeah, the timing of that, like, it's 2025, so that was 3.5 years ago, 4-ish. So like some significant time has passed.
Yeah.
That I can kind of be as I am now and talk about the stuff. So as I mentioned, the timing is like really great.
Do you remember those faraway places, the warmth on our faces, a hidden bird song, time unraveled on the roads that we traveled? That's when I knew you were the one.
Enrolling in massage therapy school was part of the healing process for me too, because it was a school that was incorporated a lot of holistic elements, and it wasn't just like, this is how you touch somebody, these are the moves, these are the techniques. It was like, acknowledge that everybody coming into the school was probably going through something, probably leaving something behind or needing something. So there was like this incorporation of meditation and energy work, and the focus on like self-care. And so that's kind of the other ingredient, is like the intense I guess devotion, but to self-care, to like not kind of being like, I don't need that, or like embarrassed about it, but like really incorporating that into my lifestyle. Like if I'm thinking about the big pillars that made the most differences, like one of them was the mindfulness, and the meditation, and the self-care was huge. And that's different for everybody.
Absolutely. I've had touring rock musicians, and also theater folks, like musical theater and pit and whatnot, describe that revelation as a big deal, because it broke from their normal workplace mentality. The show must go on, and put your problems in at the front door because we're starting. Self goes on the back burner, while the performance and the production and the tour are the front burner. Do you feel that way at all in the classical setting? Was that part of it?
Totally. No, it's the same.
Okay.
With the amount of pressure and expectation that is kind of ingrained in coming through school, when you realize how, like you were saying earlier, how competitive it is, how rare it is that you would actually get a job in, a symphony. and then maintain it. And that's something I took for granted, was like, it's not just getting the job, but it's like the circumstances once you're there and all of the things that could possibly go, wrong, or just not the way that you expected it.
Sure.
And that was also a big part of accepting, like, that things are going to look different than whatever I'm thinking. Like, whatever I think that future is going to be, like, it's just not, like, just let all that go. Like, and I had such a narrow, like, vision of what my career would look like. And then, like, once I was there in a certain place, that, okay, well, that's okay, great. I finally got, a gig that pays well, and it's like, cool. But that's, so once you get tenure, you're good. And it's just like, no, it's a false sense of security.
Mm-hmm.
So, that was, I'm sure, part of the picture for me. Now I have the wisdom of going through that.
Mm-hmm.
But back to your question, the pressure and the intensity of the expectations, it's so high, and people think that you have to be perfect.
Yeah.
But the key really is in letting go of the expectation of being perfect and accepting that you're not perfect, and that, like, if you can go through and get 80 to 90%, that's good enough.
Yeah.
And that's, to most people, is going to seem like you're God. They're not going to notice the 10% of, like, error or mistakes or whatever, or imperfectness or whatever.
How dare you?
Yeah. That goes back to some training I did in audition preparation, is like letting go of that expectation of, like, going out and doing the audition and playing all your excerpts on stage when you're by yourself.
Yeah.
100% without mistakes. It's just like, nobody does that. And so if you think that you're going to do that, you're just setting yourself up for,
right,
you just never be able to achieve perfection. So let it go.
Absolutely.
It's in a different way. It's like, I am accepting that my ear, you want to label, you want to put on it, but these sounds, this distortion is just going to be there. It's like, it's there. It's always going to be imperfect, and, like, accepting that and focusing and refocusing and refocusing. And that's where the meditation came in, because it was like learning how to observe thoughts and bring my mind back to the present moment and letting it pass. And so it was kind of like these multi-pronged approaches that kind of all had, like, little sort of tendrils of connection, but ultimately flowed into, like, the same river, and then trusting that, like, okay, yeah, the river is moving. It might be, like, super slow. And, maybe there's a body of water that, like, maybe the river is, like, muddy and gross, like dirty or whatever, or, like, just really backed up from flooding. But, like, it'll empty out into into a clean, beautiful body of water at some point. So there's, like, some trust too. Okay, massage therapy. I'm going to be a massage therapist. I'm not a musician anymore.
Oof.
Big time letting go, like, fully accepting that. And it was cool because I took to it really, really well. Like, I had, like, a natural ability for, they call it the therapeutic threshold of touch, of even without, like, them telling you what they want. How are you touching somebody in the right way that is therapeutic, not too much, not too little. And so I guess I had, like, kind of a natural instinct for that. So I did really well as I started school. It was, I think, really integral to realize that I could do something. I'm not a one-trick pony. Like, I can do other stuff and be successful. Like, yeah, there's this kernel of, like, we talk about in music all the time. Like, how do you know if you're, like, going to be able to be a musician like that? Like, oh, he's got a good ear, or she's got good rhythm, or there's just, like, some innate, people call it, like, talent. But then there's always the work that has to come after that, right? I know that I can put work into anything because I've done it. I did it. I know that if I put the time and effort, so I was like, okay, cool. So I can do that. This could be something that I could thrive at, and people seem to value it, and I feel like it's a path forward. So that, I think, it was a key element of, like, letting go, but then also finding something that was a path forward, and then affirming that I could do something else. And so identity wise, it
It's hugely valuable.
It took the pressure off of like, this is all I can do. And I'm screwed if I can't play music.
It sounds so valuable to like get yourself out of that hole.
2, 3, 4.
Every situation had its own like unique sort of challenges, like acoustically and like mentally. There was something about playing in bands that was just, I think, so chill. I could do that more easily than putting myself back in front of like some trombones or whatever in an orchestra, something like that.
Makes sense.
So I moved up to Chicago. I'm a massage therapy school dropout. You know, it's like great. It looks great on the resume, right? Like,
Okay. Album title name. So far, we have a band name and an album title name. I'm loving this.
Oh man, this is great. Yeah, this is how it happens, right? You don't even try. They just come. It moved up here, and it was just kind of this like perfect timing that the CSO needed a lot of help in the bassoon section. I had already subbed with them here and there before COVID once or twice, so they started calling me more. And okay, what am I going to do? Am I going to like give this a shot after a few years of like therapy and time away and all of that? I'll just feel this out, go week by week, and if things go sideways or become challenging, I'll just kind of like take it piece by piece. There were other issues in my life that I was still going through, my relationship, my marriage that ended. I moved a bunch. But the one thing that was constant was the ability to play on stage again in not only in any orchestra, but in the CSO, which I think their brass section is known as being like some of the loudest, most intense brass sections out there. So luckily the stage setup there usually has a lot of space behind the bassoon player. So it was kind of this like this great coincidence that was happening. And then I just started gigging around and getting plugged in like lyric opera and the Joffrey Ballet.
Nice.
So I'm doing the freelance thing and exposed to like different environments acoustically, in the orchestral world. Like a couple of years went by and it was just kind of like, okay, am I ready for this? And the one thing that happened recently that got my brain into like, okay, I think this chapter is like wrapped and I've got the tools and I'll be okay, was that the CSO had asked me to come into play for this Shostakovich 11. Which was the same piece that previously I had, I saw that and experienced that as like a triggering point into
Sure.
like
Where you face the dragon again.
This happened like 2 or 3 months ago. It's like very, very recent.
Okay.
They asked me to play. I'm like, I thought maybe I would just turn it down. Part of me was like, I don't want to experience this again. I don't want to get dragged back into that emotion. But then the other part of me was saying, well, what if it wasn't as bad as I was thinking it would be? It could be an opportunity to sort of reframe, recontextualize this music. And it could be a really empowering experience as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was, yes, I'm just going to go for it and see, because I had enough time under my belt to like feel safe there and like trust that I could like get through it. And it went great. Completely the sort of positive, more healthy version of what my mind was telling me, like, do now, here's how far you've come. It brought me back into this mindset of like, okay, well, the condition is managed. This is the word I like to use.
Yeah.
Heather like really helped me with this. Although at the time I totally didn't believe her. I was like, no way. She told me I was overusing my earplugs and overprotecting myself. She described the emotional attachment to like hearing protection that sometimes musicians can get, and things like sound shields as well. So not just earplugs. I've noticed that just observing that people are like, this is a real thing that happens. And it's different for everybody. And I understand that everybody's like experience and what they need is different. And so I do not judge anybody for what they need or choose to use. But I had to like totally like rewire my brain. So now I use earplugs specifically and appropriately. I still use them in the good ones. I very rarely, if ever, use like the big foam ones. And so I was able to kind of wean myself down. I think what all of this work did was give me a lot of tolerance and a lot of like endurance. What used to like completely cripple me is now like, okay, that's all you got. Like,
yeah,
it's crazy. And
it's absolutely a balancing act with the earplugs. Some people will hear that and think like, wait, am I not supposed to use earplugs? Or so I think the key is exactly how you put it there. There's an appropriate use and then there's an overuse. There's also an underuse, right?
Yeah.
Both of those are abuses, but the appropriate use is a moving target, both for the individual, right? You might have a slightly different need than the bassoonist sitting next to you, or even the French horn player sitting 4 chairs away from you. And you might have a different need 1 month to the next, or one piece to the next, or one Shostakovich symphony to the next. Or it's a really, really good point that you're making, that there is too much of a good thing and there's too little of a good thing, and there's somewhere in between that it's going to be a moving target.
Yeah. Yeah. There is a perfect point, but it's also moving. So it's like that whole perfection thing. Like it isn't perfect. It like, because it moves, it's imperfect. Like
there's a sweet point.
Yes, the sweet spot exists. Right. Yeah. And then, and our minds can really like distort that and like play, and it feels so real, and it feels like nobody understands because it's completely invisible.
Yeah.
That's the other thing, is that like, even amongst musicians, because like no one wants to talk about it or whatever. So coming to terms with that, it's like people just they're not going to understand. I didn't even see it in myself, but when I talk to people that I met throughout those years, now they're like, yeah, something was up with you. And I didn't know what it was, but like I could tell. And I was like, really? It's even invisible to like myself, to oneself, in that when you're so close to it.
That's really interesting.
Because going through it is just like, oh yeah, I'm just still me, but like I'm just like dealing with this thing. But I think it basically creates this like really tough situation where I felt, I can't speak for everybody, but where one might feel super isolated and alone, and it just adds fuel to the fire of uphill like kind of journey that one has to navigate. I played a concert, the Mahler 3. Basically, it was like my worst nightmare of setup, where there was no space between me and the trombones. And this was a big struggle for me before, was like that unknown of like, what was the setup going to look like and what was I going to have to deal with, because it was never always the same. And so I go in and I'm like, oh, well, I just had this like really pivotal kind of like bookending experience. I go in the next time I'm called, and it's like, you thought that was a challenge. Okay, so here's this. The universe is like, you know what if this happens? Like, and Mahler 3's got some loud, big brass stuff. Okay, well, let's just see what happens. And I was able to just use my earplugs when I needed to. Some people chose to like use a sound shield. I didn't feel the need to, circumstances. So it's just like, it was ultimately just another brick in that like wall or pillar of like coming around. It inspired me and reminded me that I need to touch base with Heather because I think she would be really, really gassed. Like,
she would be,
where I'm at now.
Yeah.
And so it had been like a couple of years since I talked to her. And so when we touched base, she was like, wow, I'm so happy that you reached out. And I wonder if you would share your story. And like, I have a couple of ideas, and this podcast was one of them. So it's all just kind of this like aligning really well and naturally.
Absolutely.
To like my journey, but also super, super thankful and grateful that like Heather's doing like what she's doing and is connecting like people
Mhm.
that need to be like connected.
That's her skill, amongst
Okay,
others.
like another shout out
Yep.
to Heather.
You've shared so much with your journey and finding out what this is, that unknown, and feeling alone and isolated. And I was curious about this invisible thing, as you put it, what it must have been like to hold on to that. And maybe you didn't share that with a lot of people, but they sensed that something was happening, something was going on.
But you've softened a bit, and now it's funny.
Is there something that you've learned from this that you would hope that others understand, musicians, non-musicians, maybe even other doctors or providers, on what this experience has been like for you, and what would you want to share with those folks?
Couple things. I think one is that I hope that people would believe someone when they say what they're experiencing. So if someone is saying like, hey, I'm struggling with this environment, I'm experiencing XYZ, I'm hearing these sounds, it's, I would appreciate this help in this way, to believe them and to not, make assumptions, I guess, about whatever they might be going through, what they seem like, because it's invisible. It's not like a broken arm where you're like, oh, you're having trouble with this because something happened to you, you're injured, and we need to like take that into account. Like, that must be hard for you, and to like feel the normal. So that's one thing. The other is, just having some hope that whatever is going on is temporary. That was a concept I had to kind of like internalize. Everyone's circumstances are different, so I had to like be careful, but like, just for me, it didn't feel like it was temporary at the time, but like ultimately, like things will change. And so it's like a positive and negative, or there's two sides to the coin kind of thing. It's like, yeah, there's challenges in the change, but also it means that like whatever's going on now may not be forever. So like remembering that and having some kind of hope and faith. Maybe it's more like faith.
Before we recorded, you mentioned self-compassion or self-love.
So that's, I've been working on that. I mean, this all like takes time, and you can't do it all at once. It's like,
how would you define that, and how has it influenced you over this complicated time in your life?
It's really, I think, critical that component of like self-acceptance and self-love, it bleeds into the sort of like the relationship side things. Like, when you're getting into like interpersonal relationships, whether it's like with family or like romantic or whatever, it comes back to the relationship I had with myself. And I think the confidence is building back up. It was another challenge, was the complete like obliteration of my confidence. Like, I'd totally gone in multiple like lanes of life. That's been another journey, and doing stuff like inner child work, and just knowing, like exploring what other things are like kind of tucked back in there that I'm just take for granted, that I might be subconsciously like reacting to or behaving. So self-love. Yeah. It sounds so kind of corny, but I think it's really another piece of the puzzle for me. And a very powerful like healing tool.
And it's not your fault that it sounds woo-woo and corny. I think it's
that's other people's judgments.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's not about me.
Yeah,
that's the whole thing. It's that self-talk. It's like, okay, well, that's their issue.
Absolutely. I want to then circle back to this thing that started all this. What's going on when you listen? Are you still hearing the dysacusis, the distortions? Are you still aggravated by the loud sounds?
The tearing, distortion sound still happens. It happens much less frequently. So it's easier to shift the focus away from it because of that. It's happening, but I'm able to just maintain my focus to where it needs to be and not get into the anxious loop of fear, basically. So it happens. It still happens on stage. It still happens out at a show, a loud concert, whatever. It still happens in all the places that it used to or whatever has in the past. But the difference is like that my response to it, right? The whole difference between like reacting and responding. And it's like, okay, so now I'm just like, okay, well, that's happening, but I can stay focused. Do I need to pop an earplug in? Do I need to whatever needs to happen? Just kind of like take it slow, and it's still there. And I know it's never going to go away, but sometimes I feel like it's not there anymore.
Yeah.
Like I forget about it, which I think is like the really beautiful part.
Absolutely.
Is that I can forget about it.
You've diffused it.
But it's also still there.
Yeah. You've absolutely diffused it. It doesn't have the same emotional emergency kind of quality to it.
Yeah, totally.
I actually had a related, but a patient with tinnitus with a similar kind of reaction and response at the end where they literally described it that way. They said, well, the bomb is still sitting in the corner, the hilarious, cartoon bomb from the cartoons, but it's not lit. It's diffused. So now it's just an inert thing that just exists in my life. I'm not stressed about it anymore. So diffusing it really is a powerful kind of image, I think.
Totally. Yes.
Now we're nearing the end of our conversation with Vincent, and I want to play a cover that he sent, sort of ironic cover of Green Day's Nice Guys Finish Last. Please don't read too much into that title, but hearing Vincent sing this late 90s hit certainly put a smile on my face.
Every joke must have its truth, but now the joke's on you. I never knew you're such a funny guy. Nice guys finish last. When you run out of gas, don't pat yourself on the back, you might break your spine.
What is your favorite sound?
Oh my gosh, my favorite sound? Okay. I think it might have to be either like waves, like breaking waves.
Surfer answer. I like that.
Yeah, or just beach stroller.
Yeah.
But yes. Although you'd be surprised at how little I'm hearing. Like when I'm surfing, it's like I don't hear anything.
You're focused, right?
So in the moment.
Yeah.
So in that state of flow. But like honestly, like water, like sounds that water make. There's something about that. Like if it's like dripping, raining. I bought like a tinnitus therapy speaker that had all these like, soothing sounds, and there was like a lot of rain and forest noise and breaking waves and stuff like that. So, but I'm also Cancer. I'm like a water baby. I've always wanted so I think yeah, breaking waves, like rain, like dripping water.
Nice. That's a great answer.
Great. Yeah.
Hey, Vincent, thank you for taking the time to be on Talking Ears, and thank you for the bravery in sharing your story with us.
And this has been so meaningful for me, like to have this opportunity to share and put myself in a new uncomfortable situation and sharing, and also like just being on a podcast. But it's going to be another pillar in my story and my journey. So thank you both for having this space and asking me to be on.
Thanks for being on.
Yeah, I can't thank you enough.
Talking Ears is a production of Earmark Hearing Conservation and Philadelphia Musicians Clinic. The show is proudly made by humans, not AI. This episode was produced by Juan Vasquez and Mary Kim, and the theme music was by Scott Hallam. Talking Ears really is a labor of love. It celebrates that all people, All ears matter. No musician or person should be injured while creating art and making the world a more beautiful place. If you've listened this far, if you didn't skip the credits, it really isn't a stretch for me to assume that you like what you're hearing. And if you would like to support the show, the biggest step that you can take is leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Subscribe on your podcast player, subscribe on YouTube, follow us on the social medias. Please share the show with your friends, your coworkers, your patients, neighbors, friendly pharmacy clerk. You can also send us questions and suggestions for topics and guests, and you're the reason that we make this podcast, so we love hearing from you. Thanks for listening.